心配ないよ。決して人は噛まないから。
Reworks are far and few between in Soulknight. This is because Chillyroom, generally speaking, did a great job giving each of the characters a strong base gimmick that even with the crazy amount of power creep this game got, they still have their place and uses. There are some characters, however, who didn't manage to land in their place, and this is where reworks become necessary in order to ensure the character stays not only usable, but also fun for those who like their kit. The Druid is probably the biggest example of this. Starting his life as basically a worse variant of the Necromancer, the Druid lived most of his Soulknight life in the F to D tier of characters, always outclassed, only interesting when it comes to his skins. However, everything changed on a fateful day, update 5.5.0, where he received what is, in my opinion, the best rework in all of Soulknight. With a few changes to his kit, the Druid went from probably one of the worst characters in the game into perhaps... okay, not one of the best, let's not be silly now, but definitely up there with some of the better characters in the roster, and more importantly, was given a place in the game not many other characters cover. So today, let's see how Chillyroom saved the Druid. The Druid is a summoner character with 7 hearts, 4 armor, and 150 energy. Summoner characters thrive on letting units they create soften up enemies and take the hits while they finish the job. But the Druid is definitely the one that pushes that the most. 4 armor really hurt, and the low energy doesn't help either. His passive ability is the improved pets buff, which is pretty self-explanatory. Despite only one of his skills having actual pets and the rest being a mouth and some vines, the buff surprisingly affects them all. It's not a huge help by any stretch of the imagination, however, that is a hidden upside, as you don't need to upgrade him past 5 stars if you really don't want to. If you want, you can just upgrade him to 5 stars to enhance the skill, then leave him for a while, and upgrade other characters. The only interesting thing about his passive is just the fact that maybe it would have been better on the Necromancer, since she does summon pets and use them more frequently. Although, with her skill upgrade and how often she can use them, maybe that would have made her a bit too overpowered, especially in Rush Security, where her first skill is basically a beehive attack.
Shit! They jumping me! They jumping me!
His starter weapon is the Crispy Bone, a projectile weapon that deals 8 damage, and that's basically it. While everyone is running around with guns, blades, ancient artifacts, and electric blastings, the Druid is going around like this.
Oh man, you ever gonna run out of muffins?
No. This weapon is honestly just ass. Its damage is laughable and its accuracy is so bad it makes you look like a Star Wars villain. It doesn't help that it maxes out at 20 DPS at melee range. That's worse than some weapons in the starter chest. So yeah, much like so many characters before him, just throw away his weapon before you enter the dungeon. It says on the wiki that you can use it to feed a head to join you, but I couldn't get it to work, so I'm not sure, maybe I'm doing it wrong. Let me know in the comments if I am. I know this doesn't sound like Chillyroom helped the character at all, but it's all in his skills. Speaking of which, let's talk about both the old and the reworked skills of the Druid, showing a little bit of history when we explain them.
Cool.
The Druid's first skill is the one where he summons wolves. Unless you're using his Dragon King skin, then he summons a fish. The original version of the skill had the Druid summon these wolves when pressing the skill. The wolves are permanent type pets, meaning they stay with you all round, and once they drop to low health, they stop attacking and follow you around until they heal back up. The skill then becomes a melee stage. Yep, that's it. That's all this $2 character offered you. 2 extra basic pets and a freaking melee stage. It really goes without saying that this was probably the worst character to invest in the whole game. The wolves barely did any damage and they would very often move away from you to attack enemies, which is super inconvenient if you plan to use them to body block. He seriously played as a character that sometimes dealt like 8 damage on the side. It really wasn't worth it. And it really wasn't fun either because you just didn't have any buttons to press after the first room. Your entire skill becomes a melee hit once the wolves attack. You'll only use the melee to erase bullets most of the time since you didn't have any defense, which seriously wasn't effective since it had a cooldown unlike how melee at close range usually works. In update 3.4.0, the skill received a pretty substantial rework. Yes, before the kernel. It made it so that the melee attack will mark targets, making the wolves prioritize and leap onto them, which kind of helped the whole wolves staying away too far thing. You'd think this made the skill better, right? Right? Hell no, of course it didn't, it was bloody garbage. This really wasn't a good look for the Druid or Chillyroom to be honest, considering his price, and that the skill he received afterwards had a special requirement that most people didn't bother with. So, the average player back then, the main lobby might as well have just looked like this. Enter 5.5.0, where the wolves turn from helpless puppies running around to this. The skill was reworked entirely. First off, they made the wolves spawn naturally instead of requiring a button to press. Amazing, I know. But seriously, this change was the best thing ever when I first saw it. It was extremely tedious to have to spawn them every single time you went on to another round. And I'm not brain rotted by TikTok, so you know it was a real issue. It was even worse if you had a statue, because your usage would be compromised, unless you decided to delay using your skill, which meant you just didn't play a character for the first fight. 2 dogs, madam. Moving on with the rework, the wolves attack enemies like usual, however the skill button is no longer a melee attack. Instead, the skill heals up the wolves and empowers them for a few seconds, granting bonus damage, movement speed, increased size, and make them drop elemental pools on each attack, fire and ice. This changes quite literally everything. Not only is there a tactical use for your skill now, but it also makes the skill actually worth a damn, since now the skills get defense, health, and damage, so they can seriously shred targets. It also gives them utility since they can now stun enemies for you, so not only can they block damage really well, they can also now set up your damage, making them the perfect followers. This finally gives the Druid a place. Instead of a wannabe Necromancer, he's now a mix of a utility caster and a summoner. So basically like the weird son of the Alchemist and the Necromancer. That's now the third person we gotta add to the list of people who probably slept with the Necromancer. A small tip here, the skill heals up the wolves, so make sure you use it as soon as they run out of health, since they stop attacking once they do and it takes a while to regenerate. It's not all sunshines and rainbows. The skill still doesn't offer any defense, so you'll need to be really careful. Although, admittedly, sometimes it's not on the Druid. Please appreciate this death with me. Here, I use a pill to increase my health. My gamble works and I get some. Then I take the big pill, making me get even more health. So I rush to the next room, confident in my new health bar. I mean, it's only worth 1, and I have 9 health and 6 armor. Surely nothing would happen. What the frick just happened? Well, I'll tell you. Something I haven't noticed is that I decided earlier to take the supernova power. But I did not notice that I still had 1 more battle with low defense left to go. So I squared up and I instantly get what I deserve. Okay, at the Druid's defense though, he does have some levels of defense through body blocking with his pets. Although any Demon Mancer main will tell you that that's a very short-lived plan. Overall though, giving the wolves elemental attacks not only made them more powerful, but also gave them specific utility, and made the skill both more fun and more strategic, which is a huge improvement over the use it and forget about it playstyle that it usually had. So this skill was probably the biggest love in the kit of the Druid, however he also received a rework on his next skill. So let's give it a look as well now.
Don't let your kids watch it!
This is the skill where the Druid spawns vines. Unless you use his Capricorner skin, then he spawns elemental towers that erupt from the ground to deal AoE elemental damage and block bullets. Nothing suspicious. The Druid spawns a bunch of vines that fire poison projectiles at 360-degree radius. They could also block bullets, and once they die, they leave poison pools behind. This skill was probably the biggest disappointment ever to come out of 2.2.2. I mean, you had to collect 8 torn pages from the Valkyrie leader to get a skill for a character not many people play, and all it did was just fire bullets in all directions, which yes, did hurt, but it wasn't worth having to grind Ward 3 so much. I'd like to remind you of 3 things. A, Ward 3 back then was the max, and we didn't have the never skip we have now, so you had to play the full game and run the gamble on whether or not you get the correct Ward 3 in the first place. B, everyone already dismissed and didn't upgrade the Druid, so they had to double grind both the skill and his upgrades just to make the skill useful. Only to find out that the vines barely had any health and it would implode in that as they really didn't have enough health. Their damage wasn't impressive without clumping them together or 2, and if you do so, you might get LOS. And C, we got Prey, the most busted ass ability the pieces ever got in the same update, which was not only an easier grind but also a much stronger ability for a character that needed it, and it also was gem based. To say this ability was unpopular is an understatement. The rework did help it immensely. Its bullets now had a homing effect when they tracked the target, and they were also given the ability to deal poison damage. On a completely unrelated note, hey, did you guys know that poison deals more damage than fire? Oh, and the pools that Vines drop now also give monsters a slow effect, so they also double as both damage and utility. The skill used to be a wild chance for you to get a hit. Now it's a wild chance for you to miss, which changes a lot more than you think. Specifically the whole clumping them up thing. Now you can move around so to spread them up a little bit more since the bullets track, meaning you don't need to group them to get the maximum damage. Spreading them not only spreads out their poison pools upon death, but also gives you more of an area to use them as meat shields, or rather a vegan version of that. It also just increases your line of sight. The skill is honestly pretty good past rework, and you can use it in multiple ways based on the situation. You can even travel boss and surround it with the vines so you can move around freely. It's pretty funny, honestly. My favorite thing to do with these things is just to use the lasso gun to pull enemies in the middle of my vines for a surprise spanking, which is really effective until, you know, I accidentally pulled a champion enemy to them. Overall though, maybe hard to grind, but the skill is definitely fun to use once you get comfortable with how you should place them. Definitely give them a go. Alright, now the third skill technically wasn't reworked, but I will cover it anyway since this is the Druid's video. So let's move on to this third skill.
Exactly what we had John West want.
The third skill has the Druid summon a bear mount that he automatically rides. Unless you use his workaholic skin, then he summons the baby.
Let's go. Let's go.
The bear takes the hits for you like a regular mount and performs a slam attack every 2.5 seconds. You can retap the skill to make the bear fight on his own like a pet, which lets him heal during combat. Unlike in his mount form where he can only heal once all his life is gone. Look, all I'm saying is this skill walked so the custom prince could run. And the custom prince didn't just run, he damn near flew away.
Come on!
There is really no nicer way to say it. I did beat Badass and Druid for the first time using it, but it's really just an inferior version of the custom prince. The difference is that this one is a little bit more dynamic. You can let the bear fight on his own and remount him at any moment, to not only heal him, but also give yourself some confidence and some defense. And it does have some nasty damage, but it can also stun by the way. You should use it to get past some undodgeable damage before letting it do its thing, since it just has more health this way. It also just lets you recharge the skill so you can recall and heal it at any moment. It's a decent skill, but it has two flaws. The first one is how surprisingly squishy the bear is. This is because for some reason Chillyroom made it so the bear takes 4 times the damage when you mount it. So this 30 health mount beast gets taken out by like 2 attacks that would usually deal 4 damage. I'm not even joking. They really don't want you to like this thing. And the second flaw is, well, it grants a huge burst of confidence. I mean, you're faster, you have a stun, you look badass, so obviously you're stronger, right? Well, that's how the skill makes you feel. And the boost in confidence can really mess you up, especially in co-op, where you think you can take on anything solo. And well, confidence is rarely rewarded.
My mind's telling me no, but my body's telling me yes.
That being said though, the skill is honestly just fine. It has damage, mobility, utility, and everything to make it worth its price. And it's pretty fun and creative once. It's just that it's usually better to let the bear fight on his own, and at that point you're just using a worse wolf. But the idea of being able to use him as a sort of defense for a little while is pretty creative and also has its uses. So if you for some reason just don't like the custom prince, this is a pretty good alternative for you. Just, you know your limits. While his kit is not rocket science and definitely not S tier, the Druid after the rework became much better. Most reworks would just buff up some numbers and call it a day, but Chillyroom understood the actual problem with the Druid. He just wasn't functional. He wasn't fun because his skills basically played themselves and he was left not having the option to do anything. He wasn't useful because his skills were merely copies of others with no upper hand. And most importantly, he wasn't worth his price, not only because there were better alternatives to what he did, but also better overall characters that cost just as much of him, is not less. Adding the ability to have elemental attacks on pets and making his vines so much more consistent gave him a place in this game. Instead of just being a copy, he's now a new and interesting take on the utility cast. Yeah, he's not as strong as the Witch when it comes to stunning, and his pets aren't a bike gang like the Necromancer, but he has just enough power from these two that he fills a niche. I especially love that they just didn't make him overpowered in the rework. He was just simply more fun and more usable. I think that's what reworks should aim to achieve. Not just make the character better numbers wise and make them like S tier. They should just focus on being functional, on giving the character a gimmick that they can work with, instead of just being a weaker version of something else. Just something that assists them to serve their place in the game. Sure, his starter weapon could use some help, and yes, he's still somewhat fragile, but he is simply more fun, and that's all what matters in the end. Thanks for watching. By the time you watch this, the channel has potentially reached 1000 subscribers or super close to it. So I must say thank you guys so much for this. It has been literally a dream since Bloodshot. Like and subscribe for more content and ring the bell so you don't miss out my promised assassin video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.